Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Hello and welcome to Centre Stage, the South African Theatre and Film Podcast. We are hosted on the Blended Podcast Network, so please do us a solid and follow Blended Podcast on Facebook, YouTube and Spotify, as it really helps our show and all the other amazing shows on the network. Right, I'm your host for Centre Stage, Alistair, and with me, as always,
is Peter, and we are joined by the wonderfully talented Tara Notcutt.
Thank you.
Welcome, Tara.
Hi.
So good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
So let's jump right in. Who are you?
Who am I? That's like existential level. Who am I? Or
Let's keep it a little bit
short
like
biography version.
rounded, yeah.
Okay, great. I am a theatre director and producer and writer and sort of jack of all trades. And I've worked in theatre for the last 10 years. My dad was a drama teacher, my mom a dance teacher, so there was kind of no escaping it. They're also teachers, so I'm now actually moving into teaching, so I'm just sort of fulfilling the prophecy laid out at my birth, and yes.
Tends to run in the family, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I do a mixture of things. I also work as a project manager, but up until now, everything's been pretty much 100% theatre-based, which is really lucky. Like, not a lot of people are able to say that, which is really, it's been obviously a lot of hard work, but I think a lot of people work hard and the stars don't align in the right kind of ways. So I've had a really, really good ride and it's been cool. But I'm also very aware of, there's a lot of complicated stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into.
So where did you study? You're studying now with me at UCT. So where were you before that?
At UCT. Did theatre and performance, and I graduated in 2008. So it's a very long. I haven't studied in such a long time. It's weird being a student again. But yeah, I graduated in 2008, and since then I've just been working. And in all kinds of theatres across the country, across different festivals. I've been able to travel internationally, so it's been really cool, but really hard at the same time.
I can imagine. It's the idea of like just jumping from one job to another. Like, that always terrifies me. You don't know if there's another one coming.
Oh god, yeah, no. Or you have because you don't know when another one's coming. So then you try to overcompensate and make sure that there's always one overlapping, and then you just stressful. End up completely. So I'm 32. In 10 years, I've directed over 50 shows. Which is an average of 5 a year, which is stupid. That's crazy, and I don't recommend it because I keep having a joke. Well, my family has a joke that I'm going to have a heart attack by age 40.
Let's hope not.
I'm trying to not do that, so I'm trying to slow everything down a little bit. But just for scale, I guess that's it's a lot of really, really hard work, and I think, if you're not working, you're not making money as a freelancer.
Yeah,
which I'm sure a lot of people understand that sort of area, and the overlapping is the hardest part, I think. Or you're touring with one show, but then in the morning getting up early to do emails
rehearsals
for another show, to get back and have a nap and then rehearse something else in the afternoon. So it's intense.
You mentioned earlier you did a lot of festivals. What are some of the festivals you've been a part of?
Well, I guess National Arts Festival has been a huge. That's been a really big part of getting to where I am. Also, all the Afrikaans festivals, so Art Club Kakanka, Woordfees, and all the way to things like the Hilton Festival, which is hella bougie and very nice, and that's actually happening this weekend, which is why I just thought of it. And things like there's a Herman Charles Bosman Festival, which happens in the Groot Mariku, with this charming, wonderful bunch of people who just love the work of Herman Charles Bosman, but then they invite people to come do performances and then have all these amazing talks, sure, he wrote these things like back in the day. How do we look at it now as like a modern audience? Like, how do we engage with it critically? So like, and it happens in the Groot Mariku, like in a tiny, tiny town near like Zeerust, which for like context,
I don't even know where that is.
well, like north, and like you fly into Lanseria and you just drive. And like for context, like I think one of the tolls on one of the roads is I think 120 rand for a car, because I don't think a lot of traffic gets through there. So yeah, so ranging from like National Arts Festival to right down to tiny festivals, and then things like Edinburgh. I've been to Perth, been to the Amsterdam Fringe, so a bit of everything.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So when you go over to sort of Perth and Edinburgh Festival and things like that, do you take just one show, or do you take like because it seems like a long way to go for like one show. But
it is a really long way to go for one show, yeah. So I guess the same model, like all of these festivals are fringe festivals. So the model with the fringe, the smartest way to do it, I guess, the most hiring way as well, is if you're going all that way, to make sure that you are working, so like say the three of us in this room, we take a show, like one show, but then you might have like a one-person show on the side, and Peter, you might have a two-hander with a different person, and I might be directing two other shows, just to kind of make the distance and the cost worth it. So the first time we went to Perth, we were actually supported by the National Arts Festival, which was great. And then when we went subsequently, we had partial support. So we went, okay, well, how do we make it balance a little bit? Like, we have this bit of support, which is amazing, but now let's be smart about it and make sure that we are making the most of the opportunity. So yeah, multiple things.
When you say support, do you mean like financial support?
Financial support. Or like, so National Arts Festival, along with the other festival, the Inviting Festival, they sort of come to some kind of agreement, and someone says, oh, okay, we'll approach this tourism board for, contributing to the flights, and maybe they will find people on the other side to like host you, or that kind of thing. So support comes in different ways, but
many different forms.
Many different forms. Yeah.
So how long have you been going to the National Arts Festival in these 10 years? I've
been going since the very first time I went was with my family in 2006. They took a show and I went up and like did the lights for that.
So even before you...
So yeah, before and I would go as like a stage manager for other people. So while I was studying to help pay my student loans back, would go spend my holiday up in Makanda, then Grahamstown, and do the lights for people shows or stage manage or... Yeah, so since 2006, and then I've been taking my own shows since 2009.
Long time.
It is a really long time. Yeah.
So do you plan to like go every year? You go, okay, I'm going to Grahamstown. I mean Mokanda. I've got to get a show somehow. I've got to think of a show.
I've been in like various forms. There was a year where I was like, I'm very tired. I don't think I can go. And I'd lost a lot of money the year before. So I was like, maybe just give this a little bit of a break. And but it's a great place to go to be able to kind of keep in touch with the national sort of theatre scene and like what different people are doing. I don't get up to Joburg as often as I would like to, so it's really nice to see. You can watch a lot of things all in one place. So I try, like this year I didn't take a show myself, but I did go and I was on the Ovation panel as a judge. Yeah. So
we'll get to that soon.
When you mentioned it earlier, I was like, oh yes, I know a bit about that. And so I went and I watched 47 shows in 10 days, and it was wildly exhausting, but really interesting to see the kind of themes that come up in a lot of work, and what different people from different provinces are doing. And I think I saw something from every province in the country. So those kinds of things are like, Makanda is a great place to be able to do that, and the value of that's really incredible, because whether I'm like just teaching or whether I'm gonna sort of continue doing theatre on the side, I think it's really important to be aware of just like what's happening in the country. So it's a good place for that.
One of our previous episodes was about sort of these festivals, and I think we both took away that one of the sort of, for me, the main aspect of like National Arts Festival is this idea of you get to meet everyone, you get to touch base with them and see what they're doing and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was your guest for that?
No, it was just us.
Oh, cool.
It was
Awesome.
a solo.
We host ourselves. We're our own guests.
Oh, right. That's so
What
cool.
is the so talk a bit about the process, if you can, about getting into the National Arts Festival, taking a show there. What can a person expect
cool
to have to do and to do actually?
So
Like almost step by step.
to do
if you can.
all of the things. Okay, so there are
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
there are 3 levels that you can get involved with, and I think I'll talk mostly about the Fringe, but just for clarity,
Yeah.
there's the main festival where you can submit a proposal, and if your proposal gets accepted, they will essentially produce the show, and by that I mean they'll give you a budget to make the show. So that's one way. That's a more curated. It's curated by the artistic committee. They decide, okay, cool, we'd like to look at maybe this theme this year, or we are, we've had a lot of proposals that relate around this sort of area, so that might be an interesting program to put together. Then you have the arena, which is like a step just under the main, where the festival gives partial support. And the arena is really cool because it's like the stepping stone from the Fringe Festival to the main festival. So the arena is there for shows and companies that have proven themselves, in inverted commas, but showed great promise or have done incredibly well artistically on the Fringe. And the festival's gone, okay, cool, give us a proposal over the next 2-3 years and you would be eligible for consideration for the arena. And then we give you a small budget towards your hard costs like accommodation and travel, and a bit of support. It's, again, like a curated program.
Yeah.
So that's the second way. And then the Fringe, which for a lot of people is the entry point. And National Arts Festival is an open access Fringe. Or it has been for the last, I want to say 45. Is it 45 years? I'm going to have to fact check that. I think it's 45.
45, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm sorry if it's not. It's open access. So if you write in, you pay your registration fee,
Which is how much,
which
generally?
now is, gosh, it's been a couple of years since I've produced my own one that's gone. But it's, I think, 2,500, and part of that is like partial deposit towards your venue hire.
Okay.
So basically what happens is step by step. We have an idea. We go, oh, okay, cool, we would like to do a show together, and let's write in. So you write in by the particular date, you put in your sort of application fee, and the festival then assigns you a venue, a number of performances, and says, okay, cool, if you have X amount of performances, your venue hire is going to be 450 Rand per performance. So the costs there are quite a number of costs that are involved before you've even kind of gotten there. With venue hire, registration. If you want to make posters, you can do them either yourself or through the festival, and then you obviously have to get yourself there and accommodate yourself, and there are a couple of options for that, and then sell as hard as you can to try and make some of that money back, which is why, coming back to the earlier point, which is why so many people either go and like Rob Revere and do 6 shows in a year, or kind of like cross-pollinate between other shows so that the costs are shared between different companies or different people.
Because imagine if you just go like just if you're like a one-man show, it's going to be a
it's still only one person,
yeah.
and is still quite pricey because your venue hire is still going to be a venue hire.
Yeah.
So you do see a lot of one-person shows because it obviously is economical. It's more economically viable to accommodate one person, or one person and a technical manager. But yeah, so it's a very interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting place. It's a hard place. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've gone and I've been very lucky, and I've broken even. I've gone and been even more lucky and like actually made money, and I've also gone and lost a lot of money and spent like maybe 4 years trying to kind of like recover from that. So it's always a risk, but I think particularly as a younger artist, the potential gain, like you might win an innovation award, and we'll come to this just now, I think, but you might get that sort of like nod of recognition, and that might help you not only back in like the town that you live in and where you're mostly producing your work, but if you go back to festival, you've kind of like built up a bit of a name, and people go, oh yes, they won this award last year, let's go see what they've done. So I think some people see, like going to National Arts Festival as like a 3-year plan, and you sort of go the first time and like, okay, cool, like over 3 years you're going to do these kinds of shows to try and build up that name and that get a bit of momentum going. Like in Edinburgh, for example, I've got like friends who speak about artists, particularly stand-up, who see it as like a 10-year plan. Like it's like an investment in marketing themselves and like making a name for themselves. So I think it just depends on how you see it. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy, like, and there are a lot of risks involved, but there are many wonderful things to be gained from it. And I mean, I've had the most amazing journey with National Arts Festival. I've also like hated it at times because it's been really difficult, but
I think the experience, I've been there a few times in a show, and just like the experience, like even if you maybe don't make money, or if it's like you have an issue with your venue or whatever, the overall experience is always such a positive one.
Oh, totally.
Because you're like, I think once again, like just meeting different people, and like
totally
everyone with the same sort of like mindset is sort of like in one space, and everyone loves theatre, or they love film, or they have big ideas, and they want to just like chat.
Totally. And like the festival, like from the festival's organizers really they really do like as much as they can, and I've been to a lot of different festivals, and they really do try to do everything that they can to make something work for an artist coming in, because they completely understand, they also produce their own shows, like they understand the risk that's involved, like to, your ego, but also to your wallet. And they really try to make things work, to make a plan. Like I've sent weird requests where I'm like, oh, I'd like to hang this thing from somewhere, and they go, oh, okay, well, let's see how we can, like there's quite a lovely open door. Like if you ask, like the answer isn't always just like, oh no, that's not what we do. There's like at least a conversation, which is really cool. I've been to some places where you kind of go, oh, I was thinking that, and they're like, no, immediately. So
what's that do to your like self-esteem?
You kind of just go, I don't know, if you're like young, I don't know, like that was in Perth, and Perth is so strict on like you
calling
can't
out Perth.
You can't do, they just have really insane like health and safety regulations, and particularly on stage. So in my very first show, we had a piece of paper that we wanted like set alight, and we kind of had written that into our rider, and they said, oh, okay, cool, well, we'll bring the fire person in, but they already knew that it was going to be no. And so we arrived and we were like, hey, cool, so this is the effect that it has. And before we even like took the lights out, they were like, yeah, we're not going to be doing that. So then you work around that.
You've got to find a solution.
Yeah, like you couldn't stand on a table in Perth either, because like safety, it's like if you fell off it, like they would be liable, or there's just like it's a lot of hectic stuff. Internationally, like there are a lot of really intense laws, which is good, but I think we here in South Africa can get away with a lot and like be a bit more adventurous, and so they've been a couple of things that looking back I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone let me do that in the theatre. But I'm glad that I got to. So yeah,
Glad you got to.
no one ever got hurt, so it's fine. Yes.
So let's go back to the Ovation Awards, because I didn't know that you were on the. You've been on the panel, so you have the inside
co-convener
scoop.
this year.
The co-convener.
I think convener, that's what we called it, yeah. So Dr. Mandisi Sindo, he was the head of the panel, and I helped with adjudicating, so watched a lot of shows, but then also, helping the international, because like the judges, they pull from people who are presenting shows. So you've got fringe artists who are performing, but then also, judging and watching and adjudicating. So,
do you get like cool. How do you adjudicate?
You go for a meeting in the morning, and then everybody kind of looks through their program, and they give you a big ass spreadsheet of like, okay, cool, these are the shows that are happening, and these shows have X performances, and these shows have happened for longer, and then you sort of try to make sure that you're prioritizing shows that have shorter runs, so that they at least get seen, and then if they do win something, the work can get out sooner. But you meet in the morning, everyone says, this is what I'm going to go watch today, and then it was me and two other people's job to kind of look at the program and go like, oh, okay, cool, but there were also these other shows that people haven't assigned themselves to, so actually could someone go and see X at 10, something else at 12, something else at 2, just to make sure that things were covered.
Everything gets seen.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. It was really hard work and super tiring. Most days you're watching at least 5 shows a day. Some days 6. One day I watched 7, which is a lot in a row.
That's a lot.
It really is.
Gotta
yeah, and like obviously going in and making sure that you're giving each show like sort of like a clean slate, trying to, so a lot of the time in between is spent making sure that like you go have some tea and like sit down for like half an hour somewhere so that you can
decompress,
be a little bit refreshed. So so the ovations, that's how we try to make sure everything gets seen, and then it's kind of a fluid sliding scale of how things get awarded an ovation, because some shows are artistically incredibly innovative, like maybe there's something you haven't really seen before, and then that's something that's, you kind of go, cool, this is something that upholds the value of what we feel innovation means. You then also have companies who've been producing like excellent standard work for more than 15 years, and you go, okay, well, this also has its value. Like just because someone's not doing something that's like mind-blowingly like different doesn't mean that isn't also incredibly valuable. And like, isn't it amazing that someone can spend 15 years being at the top of their game? That's great. So trying to make sure that you're looking at each show for what it is and what it offers. But I guess at the heart of it all, it has to be something that is good and something that's like artistically excellent in some way. Like sometimes you'll have a show that you're like, oh, the acting wasn't amazing. Like it was fine. The actors were, it was okay, but the writing was really exciting, or the direction was really fantastic, and you kind of go, okay, cool, this is something people should go see, maybe not because the entire picture is like a particular, maybe there are some things where you go, oh, okay, if they just worked on this area, then it would take it to that next level, but it still has amazing value in those different areas. So this is the only year I've been involved. There are people who've been involved multiple years, who might have, I'm just saying this was my experience of doing it now in 2019. Yeah.
It's nice to know that it's not like or at least in your experience, it's not like you go there and you watch this show as an entirety and you take that entirety into account. It's nice that you can see, okay, maybe the writing was really, really good, or the direction, like you were saying. It's nice to know, because when I was there, I didn't know how these how did people get these ovations? What was the criteria and things like that?
Yeah, every year it is a bit of like how do you explain it? And I think I've talked for like 3 minutes now in a circle trying to explain it, because it is really difficult to sort of put a put your finger on it. But I guess at the base level, it has to be a show that when you're sending someone to it, you're like, this is a good show. And shows are good for different reasons. Shows might have like an excellent performer and you go like, that's great. And if there's nothing in the show that's letting it down, like, I think that's a difference. Like, I mean, I hope I'm, I don't want to be misunderstood that like, oh, you know, the acting was terrible, but the writing was lovely, so it got an ovation.
Yeah.
That's the value that we try to sort of uphold, is that this is a show that is of an excellent standard. There might just be certain things about it which are like, you know, certain, I guess that's where like the silver and gold come in, where you then, I can only think of Afrikaans words now, where you know, you lift out, you lift out the ones that are, you go, okay, cool, these were all ovation worthy. People should definitely go and watch them for XYZ reason. But this was like, a gold award is like, there is nothing that I could say about the show to make it better. Like, the show is excellent in every single way. It's exciting, the text is really fantastic, etc. Silver award, similar. So there are ways of then lifting out others beyond the kind of ones that you sort of give like a thumbs up to. If that makes sense?
No.
Good,
Makes
I'm so
sense.
glad. Cool.
So let's move on.
Yes.
Let's go into teaching.
Yay.
So why the move from what you're doing now into teaching?
Well, do you want the frank answer or like the
Or the whole answer.
the whole answer? Because for the last like 4 or 5 years, like just doing theatres, maybe sort of like progressively more and more unhappy. And the only way I can describe it is I've constantly like felt a desire to feel like I'm actually doing something meaningful. And it's not to say that making work can't be meaningful. Like, you know, you could make something that moves someone. You could make something that is affirming to someone. Like, that has meaning, and that meaning is great, and that's why art exists. But for myself, I don't know. It just felt like it just wasn't quite enough for me anymore. I then got invited to be an Artekafeer Tinu Toneel judge 4 years ago. So that meant 5 weeks on the road watching high school learners do plays. And what was really amazing about that was you're not only watching them and sort of giving awards, you're also giving feedback to each play and going, okay, cool, for this style that you've gone for this play that you've made, here are 10 ways that you could make it better, 10 ways to like take it to the next level, which sort of engaged the directing part of my brain, but also felt like it was, I don't know, I felt like I was doing something that had meaning beyond just myself. Like, the thing
you're
is,
helping someone else.
Yeah, like a competition that is not about you. It's about that school and going, okay, cool. Like, for example, there's a school in Port Elizabeth where I think each show has to be like 70% Afrikaans. The school is maybe you've got learners who maybe are third or fourth language Afrikaans. The teacher would take a play, write it in Afrikaans, rewrite it phonetically, explain it to the learners in whatever language they understood, which ranged from Xhosa to Zulu to German. And then they would rehearse it phonetically, but with understanding and with meaning. And like, she would spend the whole year making this play and then bring it to the competition, just so that they had the experience of, performing at competition level, seeing other schools and what they're doing. And something like that, like, I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, stories like that, teachers like that, I found incredibly inspiring. And I like the engagement that I got to have, where you get to talk to them afterwards and say, okay, cool, these things you did were great. Now, if you want to like make it even better, think of XYZ. So that sort of really sparked that part of my brain. I think teenagers are also really amazing. Like, they're very daring, and it's was really amazing to be in an environment where you are just looking, like none of them are getting paid, obviously, because they're doing it at school. So they're doing it and giving up all those evenings and those afternoons because they truly want to. Exactly. So, you know, coming from a place where I was starting to feel like I was doing jobs that I maybe didn't particularly want to do because I had to pay bills, and then doing things that I really loved on the side, like stuffed into like weekends and little pockets of time. You've got hundreds of learners across the country doing this purely because they want to. Like, and, you know, keeping up academics, etc., etc. So what then happened was I was asked last year to do a play for a school, Pinehurst High School, and then their drama teacher was going on maternity leave. So she had sat in on a couple of rehearsals and said, you know, oh, would you like to maybe apply to take my maternity post? I was like, oh no, I've never taught, I don't know. She's like, well, I've seen you with the learners, like, and I've got my lesson plans, like I'll hold your hand through it, but I think the way you engage with the learners is great, and I think you'd be a good fit. So I was like, okay, cool. So got to try it out, which was really nice, and then found that I absolutely loved it, and it just felt like it engaged all the parts of my brain that needed to be satisfied, sort of like theatrically, but then also, like, I don't know, filled my heart with warmth and felt like I was doing something that was meaningful. And I don't know, as manky as that sounds, like that's the only way that I can really describe it. Like, you know, I think there's really nothing more amazing than seeing like a learner who maybe at the beginning of the year doesn't like have the confidence to like speak in front of others, and by the end of the year is like writing their own poem or whatever it is. Like, there are so many micro ways that like you as a teacher sort of like see people grow in the classroom, but for that kid it might be completely like revelationary. Like they might, I don't know, like watching people grow, that's really special. And I think I got a taste of that, and I was like, I would love to be part of this. So yeah, that sort of cemented like I'd been toying with it a little bit, and then I kind of went, okay, cool, actually I think this is a really
something
good place.
Something I want to do,
yeah, totally.
Cool. So you're doing obviously drama.
Yes.
Drama's in the curriculum.
Drama is on the curriculum.
A lot.
And thank goodness.
Building up to this.
Because it's really important.
Yes, it's really important. We know it's important.
Yeah.
We all know. But a lot of teachers, a lot of people don't think it's important. So tell us, as your last remarks in this wonderful interview, why you think drama is important.
Gosh, I think drama is important because it's one of the only subjects that really encapsulates everything that essentially the curriculum wants you to get out of schooling. Like, if you look at, to go back to CAPS, the preamble to CAPS talks about, you know, making a learner from grade R to 12, like at the end of grade 12 should be a critically thinking member of society, someone who is empathetic to like others, who takes the views of others into account. Like, all of these things have nothing to do with they need to know how to do this theory or they need to know how to sort of repeat this content. They're all about making a person who can be a contributing, critically thinking, awesome, exciting, questioning member of society. And I think like drama, if you're teaching drama and you aren't engaging that, then I don't know what you must be working very hard to do that, because I think it's just written into the subject. Like, you are, like, drama is so important because it provides an outlet for kids who may not have someone to talk to. It helps you sort of put yourselves in the shoes of somebody else and think about how somebody else might feel, which is so important to know. And like, sure, not a lot of kids are going to go on and be performers. Some might want to be, but you know, even kids who don't want to, they will gain so much from it.
They'll get the skills.
Yeah. You like learn how to like work in a group. You learn how to sort of appreciate the views of somebody else. You learn how to problem solve. Like, so many things and with people, because after school you're going to go out into the world and have to be a person with other people, and it's a subject that just so easily and so completely does that, and that's why I think it's very important. Like, people kind of think like, oh, it's just about poems and saying monologues and learning scenes, and sure it is, but you could switch those out for any number of like pieces of material and still get the same thing out of it at the end of the day, which is learning how to be a human and being able to work with others and being able to go, actually, you know what, I don't agree with what this person says, but let me listen to them. And I think, as a country, that's like definitely what we need, and I think it's amazing that there's a subject that so easily does that. So that's why it's important.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was a great answer and an uplifting one for the end of our interview.
Yay.
So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been great having your absolutely insightful comments. And yes, I think that brings us to the end of this episode. So thank you, audience, for joining us for this new episode of Center Stage. And we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
King Media Productions Center Stage is a South African film and theatre podcast hosted by Alistair King and Daniels and Peter Bates, and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.